Hi, I'm Jody Cohn, your host, and I'm so honored to be joined by my friend, Dr. Justin Marchegiani. He is a graduate of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst with a degree in kinesiology and pre-medical studies, and he works with a wide variety of patients, including athletes and a lot who suffer from autoimmune conditions like thyroid conditions. And I'm really excited to delve into a variety of topics, including how the parasympathetic state can affect your energy, your athletic performance, and your thyroid. Thank you for joining me.
Jody, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be part of the summit.
Yeah, it's really fun. If you could, before we started filming, you were telling me a little bit about how the nervous system can affect your athletic performance, and I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah. So off the bat, like you have different parts of your nervous system, right? Think of the autonomic nervous system, kind of replace autonomic with automatic, right? And you have the fight or flight, which is the sympathetic nervous system response. And then you have the parasympathetic nervous system response. So everything today is about parasympathetic, right? Parasympathetics rest, digest, heal, recover. And then we have the sympathetic, which is kind of it's the gas pedal, go, 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 go. And then these nervous systems, the autonomic means automatic. So we can be switching into these things. The more stressed we are through food and lifestyle and internal factors, we can be activating these things. So the more parasympathetic we are, the better, because that's going to promote, we talked about it earlier, like in sports, parasympathetic is going to activate the frontal cortex more, better blood flow to the brain, right? Creative thinking. If you're in a sport that involves strategy, right, planning out your attack or whatever, you're going to need that higher level of function where the brainstem, right, the amygdala in the back of the brain here, that's your brainstem, that's going to all be sympathetic fight or flight response. Very primitive, fight, flee, not a lot of strategy thinking. So of course, certain sports involve more strategy than others, right? So the more frontal cortex activation, the better. Now, an easy strategy we'll just talk about in sports is controlling your breath. Right. And then obviously controlling the images that you hold in your brain, right? Whether it's visualization of whatever the sport's doing, your time, whatever that activity or that skill you're doing, you're holding that image in your brain. So breathing, and then of course mindset. Then we can go into other metabolic things like nutrition down the road, but that's just kind of one first thing there to kind of start off with.
I love that. And, it's interesting because when you're in the fight or flight state, that activates your selective attention, right? You're only focused on how to survive. So you can't really even consider the strategic options. That's fabulous.
Exactly. I mean, there are different things out there because people are negative automatically, right? So if you're in a sport or you're in a competition, it's very easy to visualize failure or to visualize something not happening, something happening that you don't want. So the key, in neurolinguistic programming or other different fields, there's always the stop or visualize the stop sign, or you have the rubber band that you pull. You're creating some kind of a negative impulse to correct that action and then to go back to the manifestation or the visualization of whatever it is you want. And in athletics and parasympathetics is very important because the brainstem, right, that sympathetic response shuts down the frontal cortex, creating that visualization. So the more you can help yourself get into the parasympathetics, easy one is breathing. That's a really big one. Now, sports, I'm a big fan of cold showers. Cold showers is a great way to start kind of your day. I'm a big fan of cold. It really activates the HPA axis, which can be really helpful as well on the parasympathetic side.
And it's interesting. I can't help but notice the iceberg photo behind you with success. And you kind of laid out the negative programming loop. I'm assuming you talk about positive programming. Are there some tips? Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, if it's sports specific, right, whatever it is, you want to visualize that activity going correctly. That's very important. And then you want to create the pressure of that environment. You want to picture the people cheering you. You want to picture your competitors kind of coming in on you and creating stress. You want to picture that, create the atmosphere so you're in there and then you're doing it over and over and over and over again because your brain doesn't really know the difference. And then when you get into that situation in reality, it's less likely to fire a sympathetic response because you've already done it so many times. It's like old hat. It doesn't feel so new. So the more you can create familiarity, the less chance you're going to have a stress response to it.
I love that. And that's so true. It really does build resilience. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you see in your practice kind of the nervous system impacting your thyroid function.
Great question. So because so many thyroid issues involve autoimmune, meaning your immune system is actually attacking your thyroid, you have this immune response beating up your thyroid, and then your body responds in a stressed out state afterwards. So number one, if you're attacking your thyroid and you're spilling out lots of thyroid hormone, that's going to keep you in this like, whoa, really heightened alert state, which may create more stress, right? Because too much thyroid is a stressor, right? Then that creates more adrenaline because of it. So you're in this fight or flight state because your thyroid's spilling out thyroid hormone, right? And the inflammation from that can really cause a lot of problems. And then also your adrenals are going to be activated as well. And then a lot of the foods that may cause that inflammation or immune attack, too much processed refined carbohydrates, too much gluten, grains, these things are going to create that autoimmune attack. And again, a lot of autoimmunity happens in the gut. So when we have this inflammation in the gut, we have gut permeability problems. And the gut permeability can, one, make it hard for you to digest your proteins, digest your fats, digest your minerals. So then a lot of the nutrients you need to be anabolic, meaning to build back up and to heal, you're not going to absorb those or utilize those optimally.
I love that. I love that you kind of tied, I see autoimmunity correlated not just to the organ that's affected, but also to your stress response, to your gut,
Yes.
and then to your ability to detoxify. So I
Yes.
love how you kind of connected those dots. That was really fantastic.
Yeah. So you talked about like detoxification, right? I want to just go there. So when you're really stressed, right, you start ripping up a lot of your proteins. Now you need protein to also detoxify. So a lot of people, when they're stressed, they're so busy taking and ripping up their proteins, turning it into glucose to fuel that stress response. But then you don't have a lot left over to heal your skin, your hair, your nails, or to run your detoxification pathways like you alluded to.
Yeah, and also there seems to be, all of our hormones kind of are supposed to work together like an orchestra in harmony, but when one is elevated, that throws off another one. Can you talk about how like cortisol might put some of the thyroid hormones in balance?
Yeah, so you have thyroid, right? You have TSH, that's a brain hormone. Most people in conventional medicine just focus on that as the thyroid. It's not, it's a brain hormone. It's an important signaler. Then TSH, that's from your pituitary, causes your thyroid to make T4. T4 is relatively inactive. It has some physiological effect, but this T4 gets converted at the thyroid and other places in the body. And so this conversion process involves nutrients like selenium and zinc and magnesium and CoQ10. It also involves some level of insulin and cortisol. So if our cortisol response is too high, right, i.e. stress, because adrenaline, right, can also increase cortisol. So if we're chronically stressed, that could impair that T4 to T3 conversion. T3 is our active thyroid hormone. Obviously, if our diet's poor, right, we're stressed because of our food, that may provide the lack of nutrition to run those conversion pathways, right, which seleniums are really important. The enzyme is a selenium-dependent enzyme. And then also just having insulin resistance, right? From too much processed carbs, high levels of insulin can block thyroid conversion. There's lots of studies on diabetics, which is the extreme, having very low T3 levels because that insulin blocks that thyroid conversion. So we can have food stressors, we can have emotional stressors, and then we can also have nutritional stressors really block that thyroid conversion.
You brought up a good point. Like most people know if they're diabetic, but thyroid issues most people don't even know. Like for the listeners that might be tired or they might have dry skin or brittle nails, can you kind of help people? Like what are some of the common symptoms that you're seeing that are related to the thyroid to help people connect the dots?
That's a great question. So thyroid and adrenals overlap a lot. So it's good to really kind of test both. Now with thyroid, there's patented ones you kind of mentioned, right? Dry skin, hair loss, outer third of the eyebrow thinning, constipation. You could see anxiety. Now those things could be caused by other issues too. That's the weird part. So you can also do a metabolic temperature test, do a basal temperature test under the mouth. We want to see under the mouth, we want to see 98.2 to 98.6. In the armpit axillary, 97.8 to 98.2. That's all Fahrenheit. That can give you a pretty good indication. If we're low in the, by a degree or so, there's probably a thyroid issue going on.
Yeah, or if your hands and feet are always cold, if you sleep with socks.
And then cold hands and cold feet are the big patented ones. So cold hands and cold feet are usually almost always thyroid, and then hair almost always thyroid, but sometimes they overlap. So I'll always test thyroid and adrenals together just to make sure we don't miss any of them up but the cool hands and cold feet's a big one. But also on the adrenal side, if we have lower blood pressure, if we get dizzy when we stand up fast, that's another big adrenal one. So if we see a lot of overlapping, then we'll test, because sometimes you can have both. But of course, the autoimmune is going to be a big one, right? We're going to look for not just TSH or T4 free and T3 free, which are the thyroid hormones. We're going to look at TPO and thyroid globulin antibodies, because if there's an autoimmune attack, that's really important. And of course, family history. If we have sisters and brothers and parents that have autoimmunity at all, celiac, Hashimoto's, type 1 diabetes, then we're definitely at high alert.
Can you land on that for a moment? Because I have so many friends that don't know about the antibody tests. They think their thyroid is fine because their T3 and T4 levels are fine. Can you delve into that and really explain to people the importance of those tests and what they're measuring?
Yeah. So because thyroid autoimmunity is one of the major reasons why someone's thyroid's low. Now, it could be because nutrition, it could be from stress and the adrenals, but because the autoimmunity, right? Autoimmune means your immune system is beating up your thyroid. Well, how do we test that? So we have thyroid peroxidase antibody, which is it's attacking the enzyme that makes that thyroid hormone. Or it could be thyroid globulin antibody, which attacks the protein of the surface protein of the thyroid. So we can actually measure that attack. And if it's significantly high, that's a concern. If it's just a little bit high, that's better. But there are certain variables that connect with why that's high. We talked about gut stuff. There's infections, selenium deficiency, blood sugar issues, H. pylori, blastoparasites, Yersinia parasites, and then of course just not managing stress. All those big things.
Yeah. And I mean, before people even get to you, if they're just going to their conventional doctor, that's blood work that their doctor can order for them.
They mostly only run TSH and maybe T4. Now, again, the reason why they don't typically run it because it doesn't change their treatment. So if it doesn't change treatment, insurance typically isn't going to run something that you can't make a change or prescribe a different drug because of it. So most autoimmune conditions, people are going to be treated with some kind of an immune suppressant or maybe a corticosteroid like prednisone, right? The problem is the side effects of those medications are usually worse than the disease, right? So they don't do anything because of it. So they're not going to look at it because no one's going to pay for the test. Now, in my lane of work in functional medicine, I'm all cash. So patients, we're paying for those tests because it's vitally important. And when I see those antibodies high, we're going to do different strategies. We're going to put a lot of focus on different things to help that improve. Gluten is a big one. Gluten in grains is a big first one because the surface proteins on gluten, they're very similar to the thyroid. So it's like, the police call out an APB. Hey, we just saw someone commit a robbery and they're driving a black Honda sedan and you happen to be driving a black Honda sedan. Well, you may get pulled over via mistaken identity. Well, that's what's happening with gluten and the thyroid tissue. There's a similar surface protein. So there can be a molecular mimicry or mistaken identity component there.
That was such a great explanation. I love that analogy. What else? Right. Like what's some low-hanging fruit? Someone comes in with Hashimoto's. Where do you start with them? What helps immediately? Because, fatigue is a big one and brain fog.
Yes. So the first thing is, we talk about stress. Most people, they have a bias towards stress being emotional, right? Relationship issues, finance issues, family, right? Those kind of things. That's important, but most people are aware of that. So we always want to make sure if we have an emotional stressor, we're doing something to process it or handle it, right? Because we're always going to have some level of emotional stress. Are you handling it or are you, sweeping it under the rug, right?
Well, that's the parasympathetic state. How resilient are you? The stress isn't going to go away. It's just your ability to tolerate it.
Right. And then on the emotional side, there's just conventional things like talk therapy, which could be helpful. But a lot of that stress emotionally is subconscious. So it's nice to have different techniques like EFT or EMDR or NLP or DNRS. These are more techniques that look subconsciously. So it's good to find one that you can glom onto that can work on the subconscious stress. Because you only can talk about things so much. If it's subconscious, it's hard to get to the root. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, completely. And a lot of the frequency medicines, EFT, I think works on frequency. We have someone talking about sound, essential oils, all of these things that just help to kind of, they just help you move things out.
Exactly. So that's emotional. Physical is pretty straightforward. Are you in any chronic pain right now? Are you over-exercising too much, doing too much CrossFit? Are you too sedentary? So that's pretty easy to distinguish. Usually the over-exercise can actually be a problem. And then there's the chemical stressors. Do you have mold in your home? Right? Do you have heavy metals from your mercury fillings? How's your blood sugar? Are you having healthy proteins and fats at every meal? Or are you eating lots of refined sugar and processed grains? Are you having food allergens like grains or dairy or processed carbohydrates? Is there nutritional deficiencies from poor digestion? Do you have poor digestion? Is there a lot of bloating or gas? Are you having BMs every day? Are your stools floating? Are you breaking down the food and the nutrition that's in your stool? So those are, and then obviously we can test the hormones, right? We can test the adrenals, the thyroid, the antibodies. We can look at the gut infections. Infections are a big chemical stressor. And chemical stressor, I just say it's hidden inflammation. If you have a gluten sensitivity, but you think, hey, I'm eating 11 servings of grain because the food pyramid says so, and you feel proud of it, guess what? It's still a stressor, even if you think you're doing a good thing.
Yeah. No, that was really great. I'm curious, what do you think? We've talked about stress, and obviously you're addressing gut and detoxification. Where do you see the biggest impact? Like where do you really feel like you're moving the needle with people? Like what seems to be the sleep or?
It's a great question. It all depends where someone comes in.
Right.
If someone comes in and they're just following the standard American diet, just by getting them to eat like a healthy whole food kind of paleo template, maybe we do an autoimmune template. We get the foods, the macros, good proteins, good fats, healthy carbs, and we eat enough throughout the day where we're getting enough nutrition. We're digesting our food. Maybe we add in some enzymes and some acids, and then that helps our circadian rhythm because now we have a better rhythm during the day because our blood sugar is more stable. We can sleep better at night. That starts the cascade because if like blood sugar is good, nutrition's good, we're digesting our foods, now we're sleeping good, we're not over exercising, that gets us momentum. And then from there we can go into other avenues, but that starts it off. Now, if someone's already doing that and they're great, that's where the extra functional medicine testing is going to be helpful, looking at the gut, looking at the hormones, looking at nutrient levels, making sure there's no underlying infections or mold. That would be the next level. So it depends on where they come in at.
I love that because when Max died, one of my therapist friends said, all you need to do is eat, sleep, and move, which is basically what you said. You just need to eat the right food that's not causing inflammation. You need to digest it in a way that you can absorb it. You need to sleep so you can heal and repair, and then you need to move for oxygen. So that's, I love that because I think people are getting a lot of information in this summit, and if they can just land on that they'll really,
Exactly. And then just healthy proteins and fats at every meal. So my general recommendation is keep it simple. Palm to a fist to a hand worth of protein. The more active you are, right, the more muscle you have, the more you're moving, you probably more protein. And then carbohydrates, I typically recommend 2 fists to 2 full hands of carbohydrates. The more overweight you are, the more sedentary, more vegetables. The more active you are, you can introduce more fruits and safer starches like squash or sweet potatoes or those kind of things. And you just got to figure out what's best for you. More active, more lean, more carbohydrates, less active, less lean, more non-starchy, healthy vegetables in place of that. And you can kind of adjust that with your functional medicine or nutritionist doc.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's fabulous. Is there anything else you wanted to share about like the parasympathetic state and how it impacts people's health?
I would just say first thing is, because we do it all the time, is breathing. So the cranial nerves up in the nasal area, they activate the parasympathetics. So really focusing on nasal breathing throughout the day is helpful. Now, one way that I do it is if you're just sitting at your desk and you're working, just put one hand on your chest, one hand on your tummy. Okay.
Get with you.
Now, just like this. Now, if you're breathing through your pec muscles and your intercostal muscles here, your chest is going to be moving. This is not good. This is actually activating the sympathetic nervous system. So if you go and your chest is moving, so my hands are here and I'm going, that's creating a stress response because these muscles here are actually helping with respiration. Now, what you really want to do is a diaphragmatic breath. So this hand's here, you want only the bottom hand to move. Top hand doesn't move. Bottom hand moves. And you should, when you're breathing a big belly breath, you should look like you're 6 months pregnant when you're on full inhale. You should look, because you're really letting that full oxygen there and then it's coming up and then you're not activating all these muscles that get you into the sympathetic state. So nasal breathing and then make sure it's diaphragmatic. So top hand doesn't move, bottom hand moves. And you can just be at your desk, just like that. It's a really good kind of first step because you're always breathing. So when you feel stressed, just kind of go into that check of breathing is that first big thing.
I love that. And the vagus nerve innervates the diaphragm. And for whatever reason in today's culture, we really don't activate it that much. And it's such a huge reset button for the body.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the other thing is, because when people are like, they're in a negative state, they're stressed, like whatever that sympathetic thing is, it's annoying when someone says, just be positive. Well, I can't because I'm stuck on this thing. And so that's where I like tapping on some of the EFT points. Like if you're at work, just go in the bathroom stall, just take a minute. And I love the collarbone points. I double tap. I find it's more efficient. So I'll just think about whatever that problem is. I'm double tapping on the collarbone. I'm double tapping on the upper lip and chin. So I double tap.
Yeah.
Under the eye, double tap. Side of the eyebrow, double tap.
Yeah.
Right here. And then I double tap the crown suture up top.
Yeah.
And so I just think about whatever's bothering me and I kind of go in there with like a number. So am I at like an 8 out of 10? I'm pissed, right? I'm at an 8. I want to get from an 8 to a 5 or 8 to a 4. So I'll just tap for a minute or two until I'm at that level and then I'm good. It's just kind of a way of me getting the nervous system, because these are acupressure, meridian points, right? Acupuncturists use them, acupressure people use them, right? But they have a major effect on chi, which is kind of blood flow and energy throughout your nervous system. These are your chakras, your 7 chakras. So this really helps that energy that may be kind of stuck in one of these chakras or in these energy channels in the nervous system. It helps it kind of flow through so your body can just process it better.
Yeah, and we have Amy Stark doing a whole tapping exercise, but just to add that, I teach the kids to go like this so they can do it. They can be really anxious and it's under the table so no one notices and it just resets. Like this. Yeah.
And then of course, you probably already talked about it. You can find an essential oil that works for you. You can rub it on one of these points or just going like this and just taking 3 to 5 breaths, whether it's a peppermint or a lavender, whatever that oil. I mean, you probably talked about it with your vibrant blue oils. Find an oil that you can keep on your desk and then you just a couple of drops or just put a diffuser on. Those are nice things to get the kind of the parasympathetics going as well.
Well, what's so great about this summit is I find that layering techniques, like if they're following your protocol and they're also tapping and they're also sleeping well and using essential oils, it's almost like you just keep gaining momentum. Like the more you do, the bigger the effect, Exactly.
You just kind of snowball. Start with the foundations, get some momentum, and then it just kind of gets bigger from there. I like that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love everything you've shared. For people that want to learn more about how to work with you or what you offer, where would be the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, I'm at justinhealth.com and I'm functional medicine doc. So I see patients all over the world virtually via Zoom and Skype and FaceTime there. And then we also have the intro of my thyroid book that should be out any month here now, but you can get the first, I think, 90 pages of that free there when you sign up. So feel free to check that out. And of course, I got a YouTube channel and a podcast where we have conversations like this, on different topics.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jody, for having me. I really appreciate it.